Welcome back. Uh, the light is really bad in here right now. I hope everybody can see me. At least I know that you can hear me. We're back for chapter 5 of Stop Abusing Yourself with Your Past. And today we're going to read the chapter titled, You Are Enough with No Prerequisites. So worthiness has been a big issue in our world right now. It's quite a buzzword. People talk about what it is. I'm going to go ahead and shut this window so that you can see me a little better. There we go. Yeah, close the curtain over. You can actually see my face. So, worthiness, it's all about kind of owning who we are, feeling comfortable in our own skin, figuring out what makes us tick and why. And I am going to give you a sense of worthiness in a context that you're probably not familiar with, because we're going to get into the chemicals of the brain. We're going to talk about why our brain produces certain chemicals and what they're for, and how that's attached to what you think about yourself, which is really pretty vital, because as we've mentioned in previous chapters, that the chemicals in our brain pretty much do everything. They shape all of our reactions, our associations, our judgments. They become the release of those chemicals then become our personality in a way, and we get used to having certain chemical releases at different times. So let's dive in. Even if you're not watching us live yet, if you see this later, welcome. I just thank you for being here. I appreciate you supporting this book and these practices and this study, this course. It's for anybody. And if you enjoy this, please share in the comments below. I want to hear from you. I'd love to hear how you help yourself feel more worthy, especially in times of deep struggle and challenges, because that's when it hits us the hardest, So we'll start with this quote. The only thing that keeps you from getting what you want is the story you keep telling yourself. Tony Robbins. Mental health. It's mine, yours, and everyone else's too. We've talked quite extensively about belief systems already. One of the negative core beliefs we can develop as children is a sense of unworthiness. This can manifest itself in a number of ways, through perfectionism, doubting ourselves, cutting off our connection to others, and the feeling of being unlovable, regardless of what we do, who we are, and how we show up for the world. The truth is that this sense of unworthiness can prevent us from showing up. It locks us into a spiral of shame that infiltrates our lives and lines every experience we have. When we believe we are unlovable as a core belief, our mental chatter and the critic in our heads becomes the predominant voice that fuels our subconscious drives. The subconscious is where much of our creative power is rooted. Therefore, when you aren't managing your life on a conscious level, your subconscious is at the steering wheel, driving you to all the experiences that have become the core of who you are on a fundamental level. The greatest danger of wearing a subconscious badge of being unlovable and unworthy is that our brains will lead us to anything it understands that will validate that belief. This has its pitfalls. We've experienced varying degrees of this kind of manifestation within our lives, whether it's the pattern of coupling with people that do not value us, getting right up against our goals and falling short, consistently finding ourselves in situations where we feel stuck, trapped, paralyzed by our circumstances, working very hard and never achieving the big goals we set for ourselves, having difficulty forming stable relationships with friends and family, and so many more. The list of symptoms for this negative core belief structure is lengthy, but the ones above are the most common across all walks of life. I've addressed the idea that we are whole beings regardless of what we've been taught by our experiences and interactions with people, our culture, and the media input. The truth is, many of us don't really believe that we are whole, which is why we keep finding ourselves in undesirable life events that keep affirming that we will never be enough, regardless of what we accomplish, who we become, and how we live our lives. So why try? It can become defeating, resulting in depressive states, high anxiety, social dysphoria, despair, and other mental health issues that are usually treated with medication and medication by most official agencies set up in our society. This is a symptom, though, and not the core of the issue. I question here whether, if they got to the root of the cause, would medication be necessary all the time? Would it become a therapy of the past once we begin treating people on a fundamental level of belief by teaching mental exercises that rewrite these adopted beliefs? I believe that this book is a big step in that direction. If we decided that there was nothing wrong with us to begin with, we perhaps wouldn't need medication because we are, in fact, not ill. We are just thinking incorrectly, and not because we want to. We would never intentionally generate abusive situations or beat ourselves up by affirming our unworthiness repeatedly like a mantra. We would never, I repeat, never, if we knew this beyond the shadow of a doubt, pass on to our children debilitating belief systems that would staunch their potential and dim their shine. We do, though. We have shameful ways of speaking to one another. We affirm repeatedly how limited we are. We pass on all the generational belief systems that have kept us so mentally stuck that we've developed entire organizations around mental illness and health and medicine. I am proposing that most people would not even need these services, and I put it in quotes because I use the term loosely when referring to the resources we have available for this particular area of our everyday lives. I am proposing here that regardless of what you have been told throughout your entire life, in which you subconsciously repeat to yourself, you are 100% worthy, capable, and so very lovable that you can achieve anything, have the love you desire, and feel so completely satisfied in your life that you need nothing outside of yourself to keep the dopamine and oxytocin hormonal balance at peak performance. Why dopamine and oxytocin? Pardon me. I got a bug in my throat today. Why dopamine and oxytocin? We humans are designed to seek pleasure. Satisfaction in life is one of the core driving functions that keep everyone moving every single day. Dopamine is our chemical reward system, as well as the chemical response for craving, motivation, and drive. Historically, this has kept us alive by associating survival habits with high reward. When we harvested berries, conquered an enemy, or engaged with our tribe in meaningful ways, we would get a shot of dopamine that would make some of the challenging aspects of life worthwhile. Addiction is a process that has hijacked our dopamine receptors to provide more pleasure when engaging with substances or situations that can be detrimental to our health by dumping large quantities of dopamine on us all at once. The problem with this is that once we balance back out, our baseline is lower than before, and lower, and so on each time we indulge. The backward method of satiating our dopamine requirements has led to many unsatisfying habits we develop in life. The kicker here is that it is all executed on a subconscious level, so you aren't even aware you're being hijacked. You feel high and you are satisfied, temporarily. We can and are addicted to everything under the sun, even seemingly benign things. Whether it's a person, a particular type of interaction, a substance, food, or even the act of shopping and that phone in your hand. We have addictions that activate our dopamine chemical systems to keep us feeling pleasure and satisfaction by engaging with external stimuli that will provide the desired feeling we end up chasing and or craving. Andrew Huberman talks about how dopamine plays a major role in our lives, and he speaks on this subject in far greater detail than I ever could. If you're interested in learning more about how dopamine works, he has additional resources that you might find useful. Andrew Huberman. Now that we've gazed upon the maze of dopamine and the role it plays in our subconscious programming, daily habitual practices, we can begin to understand why we do what we do. That leads us to oxytocin, which we did just mention, but there's more to say about this amazing chemical that is naturally occurring in our miraculous brains. Oxytocin is most recognized with the process of giving birth. It's vital in getting a baby into the body by creating that over-the-top love feeling we get when we're engaged with another. Therefore, we call it falling in love, because it's like a fall over the edge of a cliff, and it's oxytocin that gives you wings. Okay, Red Bull gives you wings too, but those are jet-powered, just saying. Oxytocin is a major component in regulating the pain of childbirth. You have to understand that we need incentives to do hard things, especially painful ones. And childbirth has been scientifically proven to be one of the most painful experiences a human can endure. Is the reward great? Of course. You get another human being out of the deal. Oxytocin floods your entire body to counteract the pain you experienced during childbirth. I bring this to your attention because we often don't associate oxytocin with other, less eventful aspects of our lives and don't understand how it works in our personal lived experience. I'm going to lay a truth bomb here that will hopefully get you thinking about this in a very real way. Oxytocin regulates emotional response. Read that again and let it sink in for a moment. Oxytocin regulates emotional response. This is vital in understanding why you react the way you do to everything you encounter. Emotional regulation is a core function that every single human being needs to survive in this world. Regardless of the era, the culture, the programming, the job, the relationship, the power structure of your nation, it's about how you interact with the world. It's about how you respond to it. And that, my friends, is worth more than its weight in gold. Remember what I told you about unworthiness. How many people walk around with the belief that they are not enough? Well, we're getting somewhere with that now, aren't we? Our unworthiness stems from dysregulation of oxytocin. That's a powerful statement. How can we ever feel unworthy if our love chemical response system is working properly for us? How can we ever feel unlovable if we have a chemical in our brains that keeps pumping us with the cocktail we need to feel and know that we are lovable? Our emotional regulation is so out of control that we've lost touch with one of the most significant processes our bodies have to keep us feeling well. I'm not referring to that temporary feeling that addiction provides, but an ongoing, long-lasting, on-drip tap of a wellspring of empowering chemical Kool-Aid that we have access to 24/7. How then can we possibly ever feel anything but incredibly blessed and grateful? We do, and it's absolutely normal. We need conflict too, but more on that later. By the way, gratitude releases oxytocin. Quote Dr. Susan Ferguson in this article from the Seattle Children's Hospital about how oxytocin and gratitude are connected. We covered the fact that childhood trauma sets us up for adulthood in some concrete ways. Did you ever know as a child that you had this internal chemical regulator within your own body? Did anyone ever tell you that you can tap that chemical wellspring to regulate some of the more complicated emotions you were going through? Of course not, because we never knew. But science does know this now. So why isn't it being taught to everyone? You're born with all the medication you need to regulate your physical body perfectly. Disclaimer. There are, of course, certain individuals who are born with or acquire by accident or disease abnormalities in the brain that can affect the way their chemical and emotional regulation works for them. This is not a one-size-fits-all generalization, and there will always be exceptions to anything I present in this book. So please, don't take everything I say as absolute. I will never give you an absolute truth. I'm only giving you things to think about, to consider. Add to your tool bag of seeds that you can then look into. All I really want for you is to use this as a stepping stone, a landing pad, a place to recalibrate. And all of the resources I provide in here are from people who are much smarter, much more educated, and have researched this their entire lives. And so I'm giving you tidbits of information, and I'm citing every single source so that you can take this upon yourselves and delve deeper into every single subject that I bring you. That's all I want for you, is to be educate yourself in the things you're interested in learning more about. Take a deep breath. I know that you're still reading, so don't close your eyes, but stop for a moment and think about the pharmacopoeia inside of you. A little alchemy shop in your head, stocked with bottles and vials of glowing electric liquid that a quirky shopkeeper wants to sell to you. If you didn't know about this before, think of the devastation you've caused by rampaging into this shop, toppling shelves, and drinking anything you thought might help you in a moment of dire need. The scene is disturbing, to say the least. No well-meaning person would ever do this in real life, and yet this is exactly what we do when we're not in control of our chemical, emotional regulation faculties that were given to us at birth. Let's take a detour on this for a moment to discuss something else. Serotonin and adrenaline, the quiet effectors. Serotonin is a chemical that many people are quite familiar with because it primarily regulates sleep and mood. We understand this on a common level. It also plays a huge part in our entertainment, happiness, appetite, and even sexual arousal. Serotonin has gotten the spotlight on our world stage as a vital part of what makes our lives exciting, calm, and fun. Fun is a huge component to what makes you feel balanced and whole. Well, feeling whole is what we strive for on a base functioning level. There are so many aspects of living that use serotonin regulation that we saturate ourselves or inhibit ourselves from its release based on what we think will make us feel good. This can get confusing really fast because some of what we were taught makes us feel good is actually harming us. Appetite is a good place to start because we eat, right? That one's blatantly obvious because it's so ingrained in our survival mechanisms that we often don't consciously pay much attention to it. We want food that tastes good. The problem here is that the food in our modern age is not created to taste good and healthy for us. Sugar is a great example here because it boosts the serotonin in our brains, alleviating anxiety and improving our mood. Of course, we want more of that. So every time we eat sugar to elicit this response, it's essentially like going into our mental storehouse and downing a bottle of serotonin liquid. We say, "Ah, that was satisfying." Effervescent even. However, while we're feeling calm and chill, our pancreas is contemplating its existence as it slowly atrophies, because it's no longer able to do its job while we keep shoveling sugar into our bodies at an increasing rate. I'll call myself out right now. I eat more sugar than most people consider healthy. Diet is something personal, and New Age hype tells us a lot of truths that don't mesh with everyone universally. So beware. Stay with me, folks. I'm about to drop another truth bomb that nobody wants to hear. You get the same serotonin release by exercise, sunlight, massage, and, wait for it, remembering happy events. This means that you can intentionally regulate your serotonin levels without reaching for a donut. It's been over 6 months for me. That's a win. This is especially helpful for me because I really like donuts. However, I don't always feel so good when I eat them, even though I think they taste wonderful and they make me happy. If remembering happy events can boost our serotonin release response, then why do we walk around telling everyone about all the horrible things taking place in our lives as a default? I know you've done it, particularly when stressed out, and I have too. And I know that it's sometimes easier to lie to people and say, I'm fine, instead of unloading all of our horrible experiences onto an innocent party who asked a seemingly simple question. What matters aside from all of that is that you thought about those horrible things, even though you may not have voiced them in that moment. By thinking about them, you keep them alive and thriving in your conscious creative positioning. Moving on. Adrenaline is a valuable component of our health when it's used properly. It's a hormone secreted by the adrenal glands. Everyone agrees on that. And its function is to increase our blood circulation, metabolize carbohydrates, and prepare muscles for exertion. And not to mention breathing, that's pretty important. These are all really important vital functions for health and well being. Great! We should be feeling amazing, right? Not always. Adrenaline is called the stress hormone for a reason. I know it's not a chemical made by the brain like the others I've mentioned here, but it works for us or against us in the same ways. And we need to understand this to fully take responsibility for our emotional regulation. Cortisol has gotten a bad rap as well because we use it incorrectly. Cortisol is the chemical that gets you up and moving. It can work perfectly for us in the morning when we need to be up, take action, and plan the day. It works against us when we're in a stressful environment, and it ramps up production, telling us under no uncertain terms, you are in danger and you need to run now. You can't argue with it. It's a primal response to danger, and it has its function. All our emotional regulation faculties work for or against us, depending on how we're employing them. Overproduction of adrenaline is very common. Most people are exposed to stressful situations on occasion, and so most of us are familiar with the typical symptoms of adrenaline release, such as rapid heartbeat, high blood pressure, anxiety, weight loss, excessive sweating, and palpitations. I believe this article, You and Your Hormones, gives us a simple enough explanation of what can happen when we overuse and misuse this valuable resource. Anxiety can result from being overstressed. This lowers your immune response, can affect your cortisol levels, and leaves you feeling tired and overworked even if you haven't done anything to warrant it. Why am I bringing this up in a chapter about worthiness? I'll take you back to one of our first chapters when I was discussing childhood trauma. The fight or flight reaction we get in stressful situations is the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, which signals the release of adrenaline. The correlation between the memories you make and the chemical responses evoked by those memories will affect how you experience life as an adult. We are alchemical beings, as well as being electrical in nature. There are many more chemicals we haven't covered, simply to avoid the scientific jargon required to discuss them usefully. One reason it's important to be aware of these chemicals is that even plants use chemical signatures and messengers so they too can survive in their environments, which are oftentimes very stressful. The chemical world of plants. Plants have evolved many secondary metabolites that they use to defend themselves. These toxic chemicals can deter predators by emitting a strong odor, or with stinging cells and trichomes that inject histamines to irritate a hungry animal trying to eat them. They also have chemical safeguards built in that kill insects, fungi, and bacteria. Plants have made all kinds of evolutionary adaptations to survive within an environment. In desert regions where there is little water, lots of wind, and blazing sunshine, plants will grow deeper roots that can store water and may have smaller leaves. We also adapt to our environments. This is called epigenetics. Scientists have discovered that we can change our cellular health by changing the environment we're in. So even though we may have adapted to an unhealthy environment that's not suitable for our highest growth, the good news is we can adjust some key elements within our lives and literally rewrite cellular structure, neuronal pathways in the brain, physical health, and our emotional regulation systems. The reason we must have this level of awareness of our own body's functioning is explained above. We are all individual cocktails of chemicals, hormones, and other things that have evolved to our personal environments, just like plants. Have you developed your chemical makeup to repel other people with your toxic traits? Have you become people pleasing as a form of camouflage so you can blend into your surroundings and don't get eaten? Have you set up internal modes of thinking that have become a detriment to yourself just so you can survive an abusive situation? You're not alone. These are normal. I can't stress that enough. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You've evolved to survive within the environment that you've been living in. The reason this is so vital for everyone to understand is that you have the power and ability to change it at any time. Again, with plants, you'll notice that a dandelion growing in a crack of cement is not as lush and vibrant as one growing in a verdant field. Similarly, a rosebush in the shade may not produce as many blossoms as one grown in a sunnier spot. The amount of water, light, and protection from wind and pests will all determine the way a plant will react and respond to its environment. Each of these plants have endophytes living inside of them that dictate how the plant will respond to certain situations, as well as other bacterial, fungal, and parasitic organisms that also dictate certain characteristics the plant will display. What does any of this have to do with worthiness? The definition of worthiness speaks directly to this: the feeling of being good enough. We often don't feel good enough to move through life with confidence, make positive choices for ourselves, or feel like we deserve attention or respect. It's more than just saying something is good enough, as is. It must be felt and accepted before any kind of change can take place. Worthiness. It's a noun. The quality of being good enough. Sustainability. Example: he demonstrates his worthiness to rule. The quality of deserving attention or respect. Example: an argument about the moral worthiness of the nation's founders. Changing our mental state around worthiness can dramatically influence the way we view ourselves within the world and how we move through it. I know, I'm repeating myself. Repetition is a mantra, and you become what you repeat. Worthiness provides the nutrients our brains need to maintain empowering thought forms and keep our neural pathways flowing like a school of fish in a sea rather than a barren landscape devoid of life. On a podcast with Lewis Howes on YouTube, clinical psychologist Nicole LaPera points out that presence practices can be more uncomfortable for people who do not feel safe in their own bodies. Tolerating discomfort helps develop awareness, which is the foundation of being able to pay attention. What we pay attention to is what we will experience. When we're processing trauma, we create physical health issues because we disconnect from the body. It is important to reconnect the body through conscious and meditative practices. A lot of us are blocked creatively because of our relationship to ourselves, LaPera told Lewis Howes. She also went on to say that when we don't feel safe in our bodies, we have become so dysregulated on a core level that we can't even tap into our creativity at all. Dr. Raoul Jandil, a neurosurgeon, describes our brain as a global environment. There aren't regions in the brain. There is no spot for something. It can be in harmony. Irrigate the garden of the brain by keeping the arteries open. Exercise while thinking is one of the greatest electrochemical regulators for the brain. It would not be right to write a chapter on worthiness and leave out Marissa Peer or Brene Brown. Marissa Peer is a world-renowned speaker, rapid transformational therapy trainer, and best-selling author, and has developed a practice for people that consists of writing "I am enough" on your mirror and reading it every morning. Brene Brown is known for her research on shame, vulnerability, and leadership. She defines worthiness as the conviction that you are good enough as you are, flaws and all, and that you deserve to be loved. In simpler terms, we might conceive it as having high self-esteem. Both influential authors and speakers point out that we must be accepting of who we are right now, flaws and all. That's our foundation for changing our mindset, awareness and attention that will help us love ourselves better. We can overwrite the disempowering beliefs that have been inserted so it becomes possible to live a healthier life. We must love ourselves first before we can love anything outside of ourselves. It's a hard truth. It always feels easier to love external people, places, or things when we turn that love inward, when we shower ourselves with all the love we've been pouring into everything out there. The life-changing effects are dramatic. Resistance to this is also normal, so don't think you're incapable of achieving this just because you feel resistant to the practice of self-love. It does not make you a narcissist to love yourself wholly, and it is not selfish. It is a requirement to live your full potential and step into a life that supports you. You must support yourself by loving everything about you right now as is. This can be especially challenging for anyone who has experienced situations or people that have knocked them down every time they begin to feel good about themselves. It's much more common than we would ever want to think. Pursuits toward a goal for self-development is valuable, yes. I will say this, though. When we take the time to stabilize ourselves and the fact that we're okay as we are right now, then we begin to move forward through personal pursuits of changing our reality. Personal story. I have never been enough, regardless of how many tools I was given. Having said that, I will explain why this has plagued me. When I was a kid, I was a straight A student, on honor roll and involved in extracurricular activities and events throughout the years. Anything under a B grade was devastating for me. In fourth grade, I got a C. I remember my mom going into the classroom and asking the teacher why I got such a low grade. She was so proactive during our school years, mostly because she hated that we had to go and pulled us out whenever it suited her, which I must say was an absolute blessing. Nowadays, she'd probably be arrested for the amount of school time my sister and I missed, but we're fine. Anyway, she talked to my sister, Mr. Pontius, and we called him Mr. Pontiac like the car. He told her that the C was given so that I could have something to strive for because I seemed to do well in anything I applied myself to, and he was concerned that I would lose my drive if I got high grades in all places. I was so pissed. My mom was also pissed. The C became a B plus because I did deserve that higher grade. The experience taught me that my efforts were being graded by arbitrary forces and were not necessarily reflective of my proficiency. This was really bad for my drive. Let's go back to kindergarten. I was 5, so that's pretty early on. I'd already been taught at home how to use a pen, write my name, read some basic things, and use scissors. So does that give me an edge? I figured everyone in my class knew the same things I did, so I didn't question it. I was 5. We all like to eat the rice from the giant barrels anyway, so we're the same, right? Well, not according to my teacher. Whoever this woman thought she was, I'm not so sure she should have been teaching children of any age. I don't even remember her name, but I bet my mother does. She called my mom to a meeting one time because, and this is exactly what she said, your daughter is alienating the other students because she cuts so much better than them with her scissors. Can you guess what happened next? I bet you can't. Because it's so outrageous that I developed a fixation for scissors that I still have in my 40s. The teacher took my scissors away and had me tear all of my work. At age 5, I was forced to tear my paper because I could use scissors with some skill. Yep, I'm just not worthy, and I fail at everything. All the adults in authoritative positions keep telling me so. I got so good at tearing paper that you couldn't tell it was torn. I was a fiercely stubborn child, so if you told me I couldn't, I would somehow find a way. She let me have my scissors back eventually, but I hated her for the rest of the year. Last one, just to solidify the first 2 examples, in case you didn't quite get the picture yet. I think I was in 2nd grade. Um, And I was getting really interested in calligraphy. My mother has gorgeous handwriting. Um, and we had calligraphy books at home, so my mom let me play with them. She was pretty cool like that. What's the best place to practice any new skill? At school, of course, the place of learning where the teacher can give you feedback and encouragement. No, that's not true. I just said it to test you. When my spelling list started coming back marked down, my mom again had to come to the school. My spelling was fine. I was good at it. It was my handwriting that was getting marks against it. I would write my spelling lists in calligraphy. She didn't like that. My words were all spirally and frilly, and they had wisps and loops shooting off of them in places. This was unacceptable, even though it was quite legible. So I had to stop doing that. We were mad again, but I practiced at home instead and kept school separate from the other skills I was learning outside of the establishment. Yep, this child's doomed. How I ever managed to become an adult despite my schooling experiences, and the stories go far beyond what I've shared here, I'll never know. Reinforcing my unworthiness is the key lesson I got in school, and it didn't seem to matter what I did. I just failed at everything. Chemically upgrading our DNA with I am always enough is where we're going to start our practices. But first, when you get a chance to see this video, why don't you share some stories in the comments below? What experience did you have that made you feel particularly unworthy? Or a better question would be, what series of experiences? Because I've noticed in my life that unworthiness usually stems from a consistent pattern that of interaction with the world, people, obviously, that reaffirm that for us. And our brains have, different ways of kind of latching on to things, taking them in and turning them into the fuel that we use to either support ourselves or degrade ourselves. So, yeah, share them in the comments below. Curious what your unworthiness stories are. And at the end of this, we'll start talking about what our worthiness stories are. If you're finding this helpful, by all means, share this video with anybody who you think could use it. Since unworthiness is such a big societal issue, I feel like it's really important that we discuss it with one another and keep this conversation going, make it a bigger conversation. Let's figure out why we're unworthy as a whole. Why is our society struggling from this? Look at all the wonderful, miraculous things we have. This shouldn't be a problem, but it is. On to the practices. What can we do about this? Write I am enough on your mirror or in a journal every single day. If you feel resistance to it, do it anyway, but add your own language to it. Make it your own by adding words that resonate with you. As I mentioned above, Marissa Peers is the source of this practice, so I highly recommend looking into her further for more great wisdom from this incredible researcher, because she can go deeper into why this works. Mine was, I am always enough with no prerequisites. I had to add that last part because my worthiness has always been attached to what I could give, produce, and be for other people. But I'm worthy with that first, without doing anything to warrant it. It helps solidify my new thought pattern quicker when I attach something relevant to my personal situation. When I started out with I am enough only, there was nothing in that statement I really believed at the time. We have to believe it to benefit from this affirming practice. What keeps you from believing it? Why do I believe I am unlovable or unworthy? You don't even have to answer it right away. Just the action of writing it down is going to get your brain moving in the direction of that answer. When it does come to you, write down everything that shows up. There may be many reasons that are rooted in false beliefs about yourself. By identifying these false beliefs, you can rewrite them, like I did in the previous chapter when listing the triggers and your reactions on each side of the page, and you write out the truth. across the other side. So for this practice, why do I believe, and it would be over here, why do I believe I'm unworthy? And so you have your list. Okay, these are all the reasons I feel unworthy because I miss appointments all the time. I feel unworthy, or I feel unlovable because I broke my neck, and now I'm being taken care of, and I can't take care of myself. I feel weak, feel unlovable because I'm weak and fragile, and who wants that? Whatever they are. And so then you got your list over here. These are your reasons you're giving yourself. This is what your brain is telling you repeatedly. Over here, the truth of what that actually is, like the one I said about feeling fragile and weak. I'm not fragile and weak. I'm very strong to go through what I did and come out at the other side. And a lot of us in a compromised health situation, that's a really big place that unworthiness can live, because everything that you could do before, now you can't, for a time until you recover. And you start to feel like a burden. You're too much. Yeah, I'm so needy, whatever those are. The truth is, I'm a person that is valuable and deserves to be loved and taken care of. And I have people who support me and love me and take care of me. And they want to because they love me. And so over here, what your brain tells you. Over here, what the truth is. It's a powerful practice. The next one is fun. I call it the art page of hearts. Write compassionate statements about yourself. It's fun and hard at the same time. Cut out hearts of various sizes and colors if you have colored paper. Basic copy paper works just fine too. Write out statements like, I am beautiful. I am smart and funny. I love my smile. My feet are wonderful. I see myself as a good friend. This is a valuable person on your hearts. Take the time to print out a minimum of 3 small pictures of yourself. You may notice things about this person later in the course as your awareness develops. It's always helpful to have a visual representation that you can look back on. Don't choose your best pics, just the ones that feel right at the time. This isn't a requirement, but when you visually surround yourself with love, it has a greater impact on you every time you will go back and review this page. Put your pictures in the center of the paper and surround yourself with all the affirming compassion you added to your pile of hearts. It becomes a beautiful piece of art that will fill you with joy when you look at it. And for me, whenever I was in the throes of a devastating shame spiral, I'd open to this page, cry, and read everything I'd written about myself. It didn't always help pull me out of it, but it blunted the blow of my emotional turmoil. It got that oxytocin flowing again because I remembered it, and I remembered feeling good when I made it. So I have my art page of hearts that I can share with you now. So there's my 3 pictures in the center. And I am beautiful because for many years, I really didn't believe that I was beautiful. There's just my simple, I am enough. It's okay to be afraid. Have the courage to do it anyway. You can read a few of these. It's okay to be smart and pretty. You can be smart and pretty. It's a thing some people struggle with. It's a thing I struggled with. So we've gotten to the end of the chapter, and I'm going to leave you there. Again, I'll say it. If you're enjoying this content, please like it, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. That's how we'll be able to make this video go viral. Let's all bring worthiness to the conversation and talk about what we have innately available to us and within our own bodies. We're so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. in a world that's trying to tear us down every step of the way. So don't believe any of that. Believe in yourself, believe in the power and your ability to heal and grow and become a better person, even if it's 1% better every single day. You're not trying to compare yourself to others, just who you were yesterday. With that, my friends, blessings, love, light. See you in the next video.